I want to talk about diversity in World of Warcraft. Now, that's a very loaded word because diversity, needs some context. Without it, it offers a very loaded word. It's a very loaded word, and it elicits certain triggers in people and certain reactions and certain assumptions of what I'm talking about. That's why if I make this into a video, I'll put it on the thumbnail. Diversity in WoW, and then they'll be like, oh, and people will have thoughts on it. So I'm going to talk about diversity in WoW and how things have been and definitely are making kind of a shift in the upcoming patch 10.1.7. Now, I am going to give kind of sort of spoilers, but they're not going to have much context. And I'm not going to reveal what the context is. We're just going to kind of speculate on it because, to be honest, I don't even know. I'm not even entirely sure what it is, really. But I wanted to bring up this particular topic or this particular thing that was data mined just yesterday. And this is for sure going to be a thing. We're going to, Draenei players are going to be able to change their skin colors to red. Now, a little bit of context as to, what this means, or what this color tone means. These are like the bad guys, I guess. These are the bad guy Draenei who had sided with Sargeras way back in the day and been like, yeah, evil. That sounds pretty cool. That sounds like a lot of fun. Meanwhile, the folks that had stayed good, they stayed blue and they yeeted off into space, and some of them became the broken, and that we're getting off into like kind of something else. But these are supposed to be the bad guys. So what is making us able, or what's going to make players able to change into this red color? Because this can't, typically this can't just come from nowhere. But I've always said that when it comes to any sort of customization change or race class combo, things like that, more often than not, where it doesn't seem to make sense, it just needs to make sense. It just needs to have some sort of story, the story just needs to be written for it. And so, without giving spoilers, there is going to be a story that is going to lead to this sort of unlock becoming a thing. And without really knowing what the story is, I'm gonna guess, freaking Minari Draenei are gonna show up, and they're gonna be like, "Hey, can we hang? The war's over. It's been a little while. We've been orbiting in our ship for a little while, being like, should we show up because we want to hang out with everyone else, all of our people." Is it cool yet? No, the sky opened up and the Shadowlands. Okay, so yeah, we won't go then. But what about now? Now seems to be a good time because the hole closed up. It's been a couple years. Everything seems to be fine down in Azeroth. Okay, let's land our ship and let's see what's going on. I don't know if that's really going to happen, but the Minari are eventually going to show up. Something's going to happen, and then all of a sudden, Minari, Eridar are going to be welcomed back they're going to be welcomed to the Draenei. And I guess they're going to fight for the Alliance despite the redness. Horde are going to be like, hey, you're a good guy, right? Get stabbed. You're not a good guy. Oh, So that'll be kind of funny. They would never chat as saying, oh, they wouldn't land their ship. They got to crash. That aside, something like this is going to happen. And to me, it's maybe we won't agree with something like that, but if that story was written, okay, we can see that connection where Velen's like, yes, we forgive you, come back to us, let's become one people again. Again, whether we agree with that or not, that seems fine. That seems acceptable. It's been a little while, maybe not too long of a while, because these folks have been at each other's throats for what, 10 something thousand years, probably longer than that. But conversations will continue, but this is what, if this goes live, that's the story. That's what's going to be written. Not much we could do about that. Red space goats, here we go. Now what does this have to do with diversity? I'm kind of leading this back to like us, the players, and our agency, and what we feel like we should be able to do with our characters because one, we want to tell a certain kind of story, and two, we just feel like, hey, I want my dude to be red. Like at one point, I wanted my paladin to become a Zandalari troll person. Once that was accessible, I just did it, and I'm like, okay, that was cool. And then I changed it back, and I did what I wanted. And you're welcome, Blizzard, for the money, someone else's money, because it was a WoW token. But yeah, that's beside the point. Players want to be able to like do what they want. That's pretty clear, right? We've wanted all sorts of race class combos. We wanted to be able to play the certain race. We wanted to be able to change our boob sizes and our. We want to be chonky. We want to be super skinny. We want the world. And in a World of Warcraft where we have unlimited resources and the devs are paid well and great and everything, we would have all of those things. But that's just not where we're at. And speaking of, agency and things like that and race class combos, this is going to sound wild, but I can see a world where Minari Draenei people, where Draenei can become demon hunters. I could see kind of a retcon here where there might have always been some sort of like it was a Minari experiment that Sargeras conducted, and he's like, yeah, I'm gonna inject you guys with full on demonic powers, and so they're kind of used to something like this, and so I can kind of see future Draenei people being able to become demon hunters. Now that's a bit that's maybe that's a step too far, but I think we can kind of start that conversation. I've gotten into conversations about, hey, who can be demon hunters first, and it was wild. But I said, oh well, mechanomes can be, because stupid reasons. But in this case, we can make the claim that, and basically retcon that, yeah, so a certain number of Draenei from the Minari side, they're able to become demon hunters. Now I think there would need to be some restrictions there, like maybe like if you are a Draenei demon hunter, you need to have red skin and all that stuff for it to make sense, or the other kinds of skin. I think there's another one. Yeah, so like there's like a darker colored skin here, so like you would have to be one of these in order to become a Draenei demon hunter. But I think that's I think that's on the realm of possibility, where a story doesn't necessarily have to be written. Now, is this going to happen? I don't know. That I don't think has been data mined. That's just super speculation, but I think it opens it up. But yeah, back to diversity. I just want to kind of reintroduce that conversation of, hey, what about these other things that some players want and maybe some players don't want, but I'm just going to bring it up anyway. Ways that players can express their characters a little bit better for fun and because it makes narrative sense. So the short list that it includes, what if I am what if I'm a Cool Tyrion? Or what if I'm a human from Stormwind or whatever? I think I should be able to choose, the typical Stormwind body type or the Cool Tyrion body type. And I don't think there is any story that needs to be written for that, because people are just different. People are just built differently. So why not be able to choose that kind of body shape? Or if I'm a Cool Tyrion, I should be able to become, I should be able to be shaped like a Stormwind human. I mean, that's Flynn Fairwind. That's Jaina Proudmoore and her mom and her dad and her brother and all that stuff. They're technically Cool Tyrion too. So let's expand on those sorts of options. What about the Worgen? Why can't their body type look like a Cool Tyrion and stuff like that? And again, in a world where the World of Warcraft had unlimited resources, it'd be great if the Forsaken could become all sorts of different undead versions of themselves. So we've seen what we've seen with those sorts of humans, but what about upright Forsaken? What about ones who are bigger in stature, like Cool Tyrans? What about those who are raised from the dead that just were not part of that are not human? We've seen all sorts of risen. We've seen orcs and Tauren and other such things that have been risen from the dead. And narrative wise, back in the day, those scourged, like, everyone was turned. They just happen to look like ghouls, and maybe there is a clarifying story out there where the people that Sylvanas freed were only the humans from Stormwind. Maybe that's a thing. I'm not sure, but that's kind of the direction that I'm going for, where we need more diversity in World of Warcraft. And by that, I just mean we should be able to just kind of choose more appearances just cuz. it's, it's not this is not one of my best, not one of my strongest arguments, but I feel like, just by that principle, some of these options ought to open up. We're seeing things here where, hey, the Draenei are able to expand on some of their color schemes. There's story being written for that. But there are other options that I think ought to be available where a story doesn't necessarily need to be written for that. And some that do. So I'd love to hear other people's, either in chat or in the comments, I'd love to hear other people's ideas of, hey, we should have, let's have more of this so that players can express themselves a little bit differently. So, and in that way, players can kind of create and tell their own stories, even if there is no context behind it. And maybe it just doesn't have to be. Maybe people just want to express themselves a certain way. And that's it.